consider how small an action can be.
Yes.
And still be action.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, because like hesitation, right? That's what you don't want. The hesitation. That's like inaction. That's like I'm not making any decision to hold here or anticipate this. I'm not making a decision. I'm just like hesitating kind of thing. Like just not doing nothing.
Yeah, when you think about like immediate action drills, which you'll have in a platoon, where if we get shot at, here's the immediate action that's going to happen without anything. There's action happening with no call being made. No decision's been made, but there's action happening. Dave, I apologize for that I haven't memorized this immediate action that you have in a jet, and it's some move that you make when you don't know what else to do, but you just do it. What is it?
Lift, vector, on, and pull.
Yes. Lift, vector, on, and pull. That's an action.
Yep.
And that action, you can take that immediately, and then you can figure out what you're going to do.
That's right.
So it's good to think through those things. It's good if you can just think about, if you can just have an SOP or standard operating procedure that, hey, if this happens, I know I'm at least going to do this. That's a really positive thing.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain, kind of trying to think of a time where doing nothing, and you already said it. I think the thing I was thinking about is even the smallest move, even the smallest decision that to do anything, you interact with the environment somehow and get some feedback. You get something. Now, that something could be very little, and okay, cool, then I can move a little bit more. But even the smallest move gives you something. Mm-hmm. So thinking of it in those terms, it's really hard. And I'm just thinking of an example where doing nothing, and I can't think of one when the alternative is, hey, make a really small move just to see what you get in that feedback loop, just to see what kind of return you get on that. And even if the return is like all negative, it's such a small move that the risk of even that 100% negative feedback is like, hey, that's good information. That hasn't toppled us over or crushed us. So even if the response is all bad, the move is so small that's actually good for you. So I just can't piece something together and go, no, actually, here's a time where I really think doing nothing is right. Mm-hmm. When that is the alternative we're thinking about.
Right. And when you factor in the small iterative decisions, it really eliminates a lot of inaction being good. And neither one of us and none of us are saying that that's never the case. But definitely lean towards a bias for action. Definitely lean towards default aggressive. That's where you want to go. And then lean with little footsteps.
Yeah. And I think where people get hung up on this, and we talk about this a lot, the way you describe it, your iterative decision making, the way you do it, happens so quickly and so rapidly, it appears that you're just going from here all the way to there. So from the outside, it looks like you're making these huge moves. And the reason you say you're cheating is I know that's what it looks like, but that's not what's happening. If you look at it like, hey, you're going from here all the way to there, and you're thinking, I don't know how to do that yet, so I'm going to do nothing. If that's your frame of reference, I understand why doing nothing is a reasonable alternative. What you don't understand is that you're not doing that. You never go from here all the way to there. You have 1,000 little moves along the way, but they happen so quickly and the maneuvers are so fast that it doesn't appear like that. And if that's all you think is, oh, Jocko just goes from here to there. And you're like, that's actually not happening.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you're saying is, I don't think anyone thinks I'm going all the way from point A to point F. I don't think they think that. I think that they don't even know if we should go to point F or point Z or point Y. Yeah. And so they're just, they haven't made any decision whatsoever. Yeah. Meanwhile, I go to B.
That's right. You're not saying go to F.
I'm not saying go to F. Yeah. I'm saying go to B. And meanwhile, they don't even know where to go. But then I all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to B right now. And everyone goes, oh, damn, how did he know to go to B? Because B is only a little tiny ways away. But everybody thinks that's a big move because they were trying to calculate. They were trying to do that calculus for a giant
And that's what leads to doing nothing.
And that's what leads to doing nothing because you can't do that calculus. And by the way, what helps you do the calculus? What helps you do the calculus when you start filling in the variables? What starts filling in the variables is when you start gathering information. Yeah. And when you start gathering this information, you start filling in those variables. And like you said, even if that variable is negative and we go, oh, there's more enemy to the west. Okay, cool. Now guess what we know? We're not going west. Right. We can start moving east. We can start moving south. Whereas if we just sat there, we still don't know where to go. We don't know where to go, east, west, north, south. We don't know where to go.
Yep.
So that small movement to the east, whoa, hey, we just identified more bad guys. Okay, cool. Now we know not to go there. So there's the opening sentence. Competition in the Marine Corps. Marines and the Marine Corps are tools for the nation to. By the way, the people talk about like what's the greatest speech that's ever been delivered? Is it Martin Luther King? Is it Winston Churchill? Is it Teddy Roosevelt? We have nothing to fear. But is which one of those speeches is the greatest speech ever? And no one's ever asked me this question in a public forum where I could answer this question the way I want to answer this question. But Chesty Puller gave a speech at like some Marine Corps ball gathering, and he was already retired. He was already Chesty Puller, and they call him up to give the speech that he's going to give, and the freaking place goes completely nuts, obviously. And he gets up there, and he delivers what I believe to be at least a strong contender, at least for me, the greatest speech of all time. And you know what he says? He just says, Marines. And that's it. The place went freaking nuts, and he walked off the stage. So, whenever I see the word Marines, I think of that. That's all he needed to say. So, Marines and the Marine Corps are tools for the nation to use in the enduring competition that takes place in international relations. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means every single thing that you do, every single thing that you do is playing into this competition that you're in all these different aspects. Every day, Marine capabilities and force posture affect the thinking of our competitors and potential adversaries. Again, this is just propaganda for the Marine Corps. In case me talking about Chesty Puller saying Marines isn't good enough propaganda for the Marine Corps. The more credible the Marine Corps, the more attractive we are to allies and partners. The more credible the Marine Corps is as a deterrent force, the more we affect potential rivals' thinking. For Marines, participation in our nation's competitions starts at recruitment. The quality level of individuals brought into the service provides the raw material to build a credible force. Attributes like education level, physical fitness, and mental resilience determine how quickly these individuals can be transformed into members of a coherent, capable organization. These attributes also help establish the range of possibilities available to adapt the existing force or innovate to create a new one. How much do you know about Marine Corps recruiting, Dave?
I mean, I have my own personal experience with it. I don't know if I'm an expert on it, but I have a small sense of how it works.
The rumor that I've always heard about the Marine Corps is that the Marine Corps spends like a fraction of the amount of money that the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force spend on recruiting. Do you know anything about that?
I can't give you any facts on that. That wouldn't surprise me, but I couldn't prove that.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. I believe it. Now I know that they must spend some money because they have advertisements and they have commercials and stuff like that. But damn, they do a good job based on narrative alone.
I mean, my recollection of when I was like really getting into thinking about the Marine Corps was the way that one of the ways I was convinced is it made it sound like it was probably impossible. Like they're recruiting like you're probably not good enough.
Yeah,
but if you are, this is where you should be. And there was this sense of like, oh, man.
Now, Dakota Meyer, almost the exact same story. He showed up, and I forget what kind of crazy. He was talking about he had some crazy, like, haircut, whatever. He was a punk-ass kid, and he shows up and says, I want to be in the Marine Corps. And they said, you don't really look like you're Marine Corps material.
Yeah.
Now, do you think this is, when you go to recruiting school, are they teaching you that as a recruiter?
I'm pretty sure that's a technique that they leverage.
Now, what's interesting is J.P. Donnell, same thing, walked into the Navy recruiter. I want to be a Navy SEAL. Or I should probably I want to be a Navy SEAL because he's 14 years old or whatever he was. And they said, The wannabes need to come in on Thursday. What do you mean wannabe? And he was determined just to prove that freaking recruiter in Sacramento, California, that JP had what it took.
It's a great screening tool because I know the Marine Corps wants people that think that they want people that have big egos in the sense that they think they can do things that are hard. Mm-hmm. And a great way to test that is, hey, this is too hard for you. And if you go, yeah, you're right, they don't want you anyway. Mm-hmm. What they want is them to go, oh, really? Mm-hmm. So I would say I'm pretty sure that is a technique that they proliferate throughout officer and enlisted recruiting. Is you're probably not good enough, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Now, what percentage of people does that backfire? The humble guy that's a super stud that says, yeah, probably am. I guess I'm probably not just cut out for it. And I guess maybe that is a good self-selection because now we got a dude that maybe at the moment of truth can't really believe in his capabilities. Very strange. Historically, the Marine Corps has been the nation's hybrid force, conducting activities that straddle the line between violence and nonviolence. Marines have often deployed to places to help the local people in time of need while being ready to restore order in those same places if required. The direction for the Marine Corps to be the most ready when the nation is least ready applies as much to competition as it does to war. And this is another one of these statements where you think, well, that right there is a maneuver to the Department of Defense to give us money. You need to allocate money to the Marine Corps because when the nation is least ready, the Marine Corps will be the most ready. In fact, this statement can be viewed as a competitive act in the informational element of national power. Next section is called campaigning mindset. Competition is and I love the word campaign. Why? Because that's the opposite of tactical battle. Mm-hmm. That's the opposite of a hack. It's the opposite of a shortcut. It's an opposite of this easy solution, the sweatless solution, as Colonel David Hackworth once said. It's a campaign. Campaigns don't happen overnight. Competition is enduring in nature at the national level, and the military element normally plays a supporting role, especially on the spectrum of competition short of war. This leads us to develop a campaigning mindset about competition, which is characterized by long-term thinking and recognition that we need to integrate our actions with others. Marines compete as part of a naval and joint force, but also as part of the interagency in an approach that combines all the elements of national power. Now, it's sentences like this where I think this document is not aimed at a Lance Corporal. This document is aimed at the DOD. This is a campaign. This document is a campaign. It's correct, but this document is a campaign to make sure that we keep the Marine Corps strong. Marines should strive to integrate our allies and partners into our competitions, as this will increase our options while also increasing the potential number of dilemmas we can present to our rivals. And we're going to get to this. I don't know if it's in this chapter or one of the later chapters when we start talking about one of my favorite military terms, the combined arm dilemma. Combined arms dilemma. But when you think about what you're doing is creating dilemmas for your rivals, even in not necessarily in a wartime scenario, but even in a competitive scenario or a threshold less than violence, you're trying to create dilemmas for them. It's a powerful thing. The cultivation of humility is also important for this mindset. Humility is the most important characteristic for a leader to have. And even though we just had a little conversation about the fact that we want people in the Marine Corps that have at least some level of arrogance, you don't think I can do this? Watch this. That's why we got to remind them that the cultivation of humility is also important for this mindset. Marines learn early on about the observe, orient, decide, act loop, or OODA loop. Understanding of OODA teaches us that each decision is a hypothesis that gets tested in the real world when we act. lately when I've been talking to clients, and well, I shouldn't say lately, as COVID kicked off, and I would be talking to clients